Stupidity, really. Hey guys, this is William. We got Lane here from Quantum and Matt from Quantum. We're going to be going over typical, like we do on today's show, in regards to quantum signals, SEO, any new features that are coming out. And I'm going to give Lane and Matt full attention and just ask any questions. Make sure you give StreamYard permission to go ahead and have access to your Facebook so you could drop in comments and whatnot. And ask any questions you got regarding press releases, GMB, signals, proximity, etc., and stacks and everything else they're coming out with. All right. You got it, Lane.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, William. Good to be with everyone tonight. And for those of you who will catch the replay, good. I'm glad you guys will catch this. So Matt and I are here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit. Last week, I will tell you, I kind of give a recap of what we did last week first. So last week, William asked us to give everyone a quick update on what was happening at Quantum in terms of some of the new features that are coming out, what we're doing there. So a real quick recap of those features. We have launched our Enterprise Media Room feature. It's the first of what is many app channels to come. So we launched our Media Room. We consider that an app channel. I'll kind of show you guys that. Excuse me, at some point tonight. But we talked about the Media Room feature really kind of exclusively last week, just to give all of the existing Quantum customers that are in the group or that might be listening a quick update on what's happening. And we'll talk a little bit more about that tonight as we move forward. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about authorship. We're going to talk about how that ties into what we do at Quantum. It's one of the core strategic, the core strategic functions and the core strategies that we implemented with Quantum in terms of how we execute the article publication, syndication, and distribution process. And we'll talk about authorship, outside of Quantum. So authorship matters, and so I guess I'll kind of dive into this here. Let me share my screen, and then I'll dive in, and then Matt, of course, like we talked about, just pipe in where you see fit. So, real quick, we talked last week about this. I'll give you this quick, overview. The Green Hat SEO methodology. It's what Matt and I have called it because it really is evergreen. This, as we see it today, and it could always change, but as we see it today, this is not going to change. These strategies have been working for over 10 years. They've obviously progressed. There's been iterations of the strategy, but the core fundamentals that you see here haven't really changed since at least 2013. You've always got to do great keyword and competitive intelligence, great research. W. Edwards Deming taught the Japanese automakers many, many decades ago, when they were really working on the quality of their automobile manufacturing process, the concept of quality, W. Edwards Deming taught them that 90% of the outcome comes from the first 10% of the process. That principle I have found to be true in just about every endeavor in life, especially in business endeavors, and it certainly holds true in SEO. If you get your keyword and competitive intelligence research wrong, you're really starting off from the word going the wrong direction. So you got to get that right. On-page SEO, GMB optimization SEO, it's kind of the one-time overhaul. Sometimes you've got to do on a website. Sometimes it's minor improvements, sometimes major improvements, but that on-page SEO is really critical, especially now. I mean, it's gotten more important over the last 2 years. Performance, your on-page signals, your GMB signals with optimizing that GMB listing as fully and as completely as you can. I know, you've got a whole course with William in terms of how to do all that. So you've got the blueprint and the roadmap on how to make that happen. Once you have that done, then it's just 3, 4, and 5 is just kind of every single month. It's evergreen. Create quality content or generate quality content. Authorship, we're going to talk about that tonight. Then once you've authored great content and it's set up properly, syndicate it, distribute it, and then generate signals with it or around it. So a lot of SEOs think that, once you've kind of got 1 and 2 and maybe even 3 done, then it's just a matter of link building to generate, rankings. And I really disagree with that. Number one. Number two, I don't think it's evergreen. It's, Google is strictly against link building, number one. So it's not really green hat or evergreen. But using your content and getting it out into the ecosystems and the channels that are out there will create link building by default. Both no follow and do follow, depending on how you're doing it. But more importantly, you're going to generate other signals that are not just links. And we know from lots of research and even what Google has disclosed in many different ways that Googlebot, the algorithm, is looking for lots of different signals or ranking factors, not just links. So 3, 4, and 5, you just do that every single month, on a recurring basis. Frequency of content authorship generation is really kind of the key with this. The more content you generate, the more you can syndicate, the more signals you can generate with that piece of content. So if you need more signals, you just generate more content, and then you use that content in 4 and 5 methodology, and you generate more signals, and your rankings you'll create lift in the rankings. So going to 3, we're going to talk about authorship tonight because it's really, really important. The world, according to Google, according to Google's own search quality ratings, when it indexes the main content of each page, so when Googlebot crawls that page, right, just crawls right through it, it checks factors, right? And so I want, our audience to be thinking signals, because factors really are signals. Googlebot's looking for signals, and it finds these signals as it crawls pages, right? And so what Google has communicated to the world at large, or the SEO community at large, the business community at large, is that when Googlebot crawls a page, it's looking for the purpose of the page. So it's actually trying to identify what's the purpose of this page. It's looking for the quality of that content. Yes, Googlebot is smart enough to identify quality, and it's looking for amount or length, number of words of content. It's also looking for info about the website that's at the core root of that, that content, where it found that content. So website info or info about the content creator, the company, and maybe even more importantly, the individual or the person, not just the company. It's looking for website reputation and content creator reputation. So this gives us a clue right here, guys. I'm not making this up. This is directly from Google's guidelines. Okay, so when I'm using these words here, I'm not really using these myself. This is Google's guidelines. Say we're looking for the website info. So what that's telling us is we're looking for info about the company or the company behind the website, or the person potentially. But then more importantly, we're looking for a reputation around the website. So you can tell that Google has got signals, factors that actually identify or give weight to reputation of a website, and then the content creator reputation. So content creator reputation clues us into individuality, right? Where Google's looking for who is the actual creator of the content and what's their reputation. It's looking for user interaction with the page. In other words, that's the performance signals, time on page, bounce rates, load page times that aren't necessarily user interaction, but it's when a user hits the site, it can generate load page signals. So user interaction generates a lot of different signals. And all of these signals, and all of this really leads to EAT. Okay, so expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, or expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Those are, the foundations of EAT. EAT has specific signals that the algorithm is looking for to basically generate an EAT profile around that creator and the associated website. And so it's just important to clue yourself into that Google and its algorithm and its bot are absolutely looking to tie content to authors, okay? Not just content to websites, or not just content to pages, but content to creators. That's a really important, because I think a lot of people think that, authorship, Google authorship, really kind of went away. I don't know, it was like 5-6 years ago when they had their authorship snippets. And, authorship snippets, you actually, if Google recognized your authorship of a piece of content and you had authorship snippet in schema, then it would pick that up and it would show your authorship picture and a little bit about your profile as an author. And then that was around for about, 1 to 2 years. And then, Google, decommissioned authorship in that respect. And I think when that went away from the search results, a lot of SEOs thought, oh, well, I guess authorship doesn't really matter as much anymore. And that is an absolute error in thinking, because authorship matters more now than it ever did before. So because of the mass amounts of information and data and content that exists online and is always coming out online, Google has to identify unique content, right? So that it can assign some level of authorship and uniqueness to that content versus any and all other copywriters or plagiarizers or whatever it might be out there. It has to be able to distinguish original content from all the other copies that may exist or that may occur online after the unique content exists online the first time. And so we know Googlebot is crawling pages and content all the time. And once it finds a unique page of new content, it even has a term for that in our industry called the canonical, right? And so it's important for us to understand that the author, the canonical, the original creator of the content, it's all kind of wound in the same concept, is really important. Matt, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the most common questions that we get asked, or actually it's not even a question, it's really made as a statement of fact, is Google did away with the rel author tag in 2014, 2015. And I have personally been split testing that for the past 5 or 6 years, and it is indisputable that whether you use the rel tag or a lot of other markup mechanisms or strategies, that Google absolutely provides additional value and indexation for that. And some of the evidence that this particular item that Mueller, communicated was deprecated, 7 years ago. There's been multiple times where Mueller has indicated that he's gone out of his way to specifically state that this particular tactic or feature or markup is absolutely not necessary and provides no benefit. And there's a few, I think, very well-documented threads that in those instances where that's happened, he's actually providing some misdirection. They're actually trying to take SEOs away from those things because those tactics are so effective, they were abused. And, everyone takes what Mueller says as Bible or gospel. And
be careful.
Obviously he has great insight and access to what's going on. But I would certainly make the statement that the rel author tag and associated markup was an absolute intentional misdirection to the SEO community because it's that important. And I get why they did it, because ultimately, all the tricks and all the tactics that are sort of gray or black, we're really not interested in either. That's the stuff that is not evergreen. That's the stuff that is going to get hit by all we have 2 months more of algorithm updates. That's what we're in the middle of. We're in the middle of the longest algorithmic update cycle in Google's history right now. And, they're really trying to provide value to searchers. What is the most relevant result? Because that's what makes Google money. That's what makes people happy. And that's why we're so focused on evergreen or green hat SEO tactics, which are, certainly can be cutting edge. And, like we indicated last week, Google authority stacking certainly is a tactic. And a lot of people thought that would have gone away, including myself by now. But it's hard for Google to sort of deprecate itself, right? So Fortunately or unfortunately, that seems to be here to stay for a while. And of course, aggregating that with a lot of other properties like AWS and, different cloud sources, it's effective. Even though it's simply just a tactic, it's really, the end user experience, it's kind of meaningless, right? We're just really trying to drive authority. But, having said that, we have an app channel that's dedicated to extremely advanced Google authority stacking. And we'll be talking about that here shortly when that goes live. So, we're not opposed to more gray hat tactics that have been around for a while, and they're proving themselves to be effective. But, all in all, we have a focus on cutting edge green hat, which will be here to stay forever, and really creating, automation that most SEOs that like yourselves out there that are very experienced, that are part of this group, you have a high level of understanding. But most of those things that have to be implemented, you have to use very well trained VAs, or you yourself have to be getting your hands dirty. And rather than growing your agency, you're doing fulfillment, which is okay. If you're a one-man shop or a small shop, that's okay. But we're here to provide support through our solution that will tie all that together and do all those really intricate and detailed SEO tactics through automation that really doesn't exist out there in this way. And we're here to also teach you guys about how to do it manually. It's not just about quantum. I mean, we love it because it really, it's a time saver, and it's a little bit more successful than us and ourselves, because if you do this for hours and hours every day, or you have VAs involved, there's going to be human error. So we're really here to help improve accuracy with the team that you guys have, for execution. And I'll let you take over, Lane.
It just kind of pile on what Matt was just saying. What we're getting to know your side, Matt. What Google is saying right here, I got it up here on the screen here, but information, or within search results, information tied to verified online profiles will be ranked higher than content without such verification. All right. So it's really what I want everyone to do tonight is to learn something. All right. And that is to slow down a little bit when you read something like this, and to really soak it in and try to read between the lines more, because there's a lot about what's said, even with things that are not said. And then there's just lots of clues that we get from what Google does put out that has a lot more meaning behind it if you just stop and think about it. You could read this paragraph or this one sentence here and move right along, and you're like, okay, sounds good. Yeah, okay, so yeah, we need to just have verified online profiles. Now, stop for a second here and really read this. Information tied, all right, so linked, and being able to verify online profiles. So we know that Google is actually working to verify online profiles, right? So that there's lots to learn right there. I mean, what can you do to make sure that Googlebot, as it's verifying online profiles, doesn't see the profile that you're using as a spam profile or as potentially a fake profile, right? So Google's algorithm is extremely complex and sophisticated, and it's working to verify online profiles. And I can guarantee you it's not as simple as you think it might be. It's very, very complex, and it's looking for multiple ways to connect profiles to more than just one or two data points to see, is this really real or is it potentially fake? And then when it can actually verify an online profile and it can tie content to a verified profile, Google's saying we're going to put that stuff higher in search results than everything else. Okay? This is authorship. Google's looking to take a piece of content and tie it to a real individual and then do a test on it and say, is this really a real individual who authored this content? And so as SEOs, we need to be sure that we're doing everything we can to create great verified, multivariate profiles that can be verified from multiple data points that are as real as is possible, right? Real people or fake people, make them as real as possible, and then tie those people to content directly. Okay, so I think I'm underscoring this really, really well, but I want you guys to understand how important this is. Matt just said it. We believe, and I agree with what Matt said. I kind of hinted at this, but the removal of the rel tag and the removal of the snippet 4, 5, 6 years ago, whatever it was, we believe was really misdirection, right? Because Google never got away with authorship or did away with it. In fact, it became more important, and out of that became EAT. Okay, so out of the deprecating of the authorship snippet and the rel tagging came the concept of EAT. Okay, and so this is now the new sophisticated way that Google does a test for authorship, and then has a profile or an EAT profile for every entity out there that has a verified profile tied to it. So what is it looking for? It's looking for content quality and amount. I've already said that. It's looking for who's responsible, who's the creator of the content, and then it even tells its manual raters links to help with reputation research will be provided. So in the manual rater guidelines, it literally tells the employee, if we give you something to manually rate, we're going to give you links to help you with the reputation research of the potential author. Okay, so what this tells us is right here is that Googlebot is, obviously they don't have humans doing reputation research to provide to other humans. So what we know here, again, this is something that you could easily gloss over and really miss. Sorry about that. Just hit the wrong key in here. That you could easily miss is that Google is providing links to its manual raters with reputation research. I can tell you assuredly that reputation research is automated by its bot. Okay, so the bot is doing all this research, and then it's peeling through it all, and then it's giving the culled research to the manual rater for a manual rating purpose. Okay, so this is all important information that Google gives us, but ultimately it should just underscore how important authorship is, and tying content that you author on behalf of any entity or SEO or client campaign that you're doing to an individual, and that individual is as real as you can possibly make them, preferably a true individual who works for the company. So what does it mean to set up authorship and linking to a WP site? So this is the manual steps that you've got to do if you want to set up authorship and then link it to a WordPress site that you may have. Number one, all right, there we go. I guess I don't have them in animated mode, so no, I'll get them all at one time. Number one, create an account on gravatar.com. So gravatar.com is a direct link integration with WordPress.com. So WordPress.com, gravatar.com are kind of one and the same. And you want to create an author profile or a profile on gravatar.com. Once you have that profile, and I can show you one here if we have time, but once you have that profile filled out, you should fill it out completely. There's all sorts of different fields like any other profile, and you should fill that up. That the more you can put in there, the better. Once you've completed that profile, then step 3 is you want to use the same email address that you just used to set up the Gravatar profile as the user account on the WP site. Okay, so on your WordPress site, you go into users, you create a new user. It can be an admin user, it could be a contributor user, it could be an author user, whatever level you want. But that user email should be the same one that you just used on Gravatar. That way, your WordPress site can link up directly with what's on Gravatar. Okay, that happens really automatically, although you still have to do more information on WordPress in terms of completing the profile. So you can put in manually put in the Facebook feed for that author. There's all sorts of different links that you can put in the WordPress user as well. So fill out the Gravatar profile as completely as you can. Use the same email on the WordPress user. fill out the user profile on WordPress as completely as you can. And now you're done there with basically creating a user profile, an author profile on both and linking them together. Then once you have that done, then you can use other services like about.me or Linktree or both. And you can begin to really give Google more information to verify that authorship profile, right? So as much information as possible. If you've got a LinkedIn profile for that person, drop it into the WordPress user, drop it into the Gravatar profile, drop it into the about.me and the link.tree. If you have a Tumblr blog for that profile or person, you get it. You get the idea. The more you can bring that together, the more ammo you're going to give Googlebot to verify that profile. That way, when content comes out and it's tied to that authorship profile, you're going to have a much greater chance of having that content do well in the SERPs over content that isn't verified or tied to an authorship profile. So, Matt, you have anything you want to talk about here on this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so some of the challenges that you encounter, those of you that might already be deploying something like this, is more than just the profile. When you do this manually, you have to, cover your footsteps in terms of what your IP is. One big indicator that Google is no longer confused about those individuals, SEOs and marketers, that are trying to duplicate this process manually, but not cover their tracks, is next year, like literally in 6 to 7 months from now, cookies are going to be sunsetted. So all third-party cookies on Chrome, which has 90% of the browser market, right, worldwide, all third-party cookies, all cookies that are not related to Google, are going away. And that's going to be have a substantial impact on everything online, but particularly marketing, and more specifically what we do in terms of SEO. They're now able to identify individuals even outside and beyond your browser fingerprint, even your IP. You have to take several steps in order to duplicate an authentic authorship entity or trail if you're doing this on behalf of your clients. Now, ultimately, if you're going to be a successful agency and a profitable agency, you need several dozen or at least a handful of, good clients, right, in order to produce, enough revenue to where this is worth a lifestyle worth living and doing. And which means you're handling, anywhere from, 10, 20, 30 profiles, because, we know the clients aren't going to get extremely involved in that. I mean, the few clients that help you with content because they are absolute experts, whether it's an attorney or, a doctor or some sort of service trade, and they love to talk and they make videos, and that's all great, but that's few and far between, right? In general, as an agency, you and your staff have to help duplicate this authorship profile. You have to help maintain it. We call it the 3 M's: to manage, to market, and to monitor, right? Those are the 3 M's: managing, marketing, and monitoring the profile, the SEO, the brand. And that takes a very concerted and direct effort, especially when you're doing it manually. So at a bare minimum, and I don't know how many of you can actually, respond in chat. Let me ask a quick question by show of hands, or, give me a 1 if you manage profiles, but you do not use any local IP or VPN. Give me a 1. And give me a 2 if you manage profiles and you do use VPNs and unique IP addresses on a client-by-client basis. Can you guys give me a 1 or a 2 inside of chat? Okay, I'm not sure. I'm not seeing any responses, so I'm not sure if that's coming through or not, but we'll watch for that if you guys get an opportunity to post.
We got a 1.
Okay. bottom line is, you can go through a lot of these tactics and do everything right. And if you're revealing to Google that, that you and or your team, a handful of your teammates, are using the same digital fingerprint, which includes IPs and browsers and cache and history, and it's really hard to, fake that unless you're very intentional. So they already know, and a lot of those efforts are gonna go to the wayside because they know you're losing in terms of the EAT algorithm, you're losing authenticity. So even if the information and the content that's being posted is of an expert nature, right? It's very well written. Okay. And then, we'll skip over the letter A, EAT, the acronym. The letter T, is it trustworthy, right? So even if the content is of an expert nature, even if it's trustworthy, the problem is if it's not authentic, right? And that's where most SEOs are failing without making that extra effort to cover their footsteps. And one of the way, we can go into this next week, Lane. I know that you already have some training put together on this. And this is extremely, extremely advanced training. It's not that it's so technical, it's that not a lot of people are familiar with it. It's something that we developed, 7 or 8 years ago, and it's made us, I can't tell you how many hundreds of thousands of dollars this specific technique has made us in terms of branding and covering up our authorship and authenticity steps. So that's something for you guys to look forward to next week. Elaine already has a training that we used to do in a extremely elite mastermind. If you're okay with it, Lane, I would say let's make some of that available next week. Let's reward.
It'll tie well into authorship. It'll extend on it. We can also talk. I can talk a little bit more about this next week. We're already at 40 minutes in. But one of the things that Matt's talking about is just basically, your footprint. And as an SEO, you've got to be concerned about that. If you're not thinking about that, you're really missing the boat. You have to be thinking about that. It's not a big deal if you got a couple of campaigns, but you got 20, 30, 50, 100 campaigns, and all of a sudden your footprint really matters. And so very simple way to just begin to silo or compartmentalize your different campaigns is within Chrome profiles. And so, you can see I've got a lot of different profiles in here. I don't want to, reveal them all, but you can hit the round circle button in your Chrome browser, and that reveals the Chrome profile and how to use. You can just do a Google search on how to use Chrome profiles, but Chrome profiles is one of the first and most basic ways that you can use or the method to keep your campaign separate and the cache of the browser for each campaign separate. And it's really important to do this for multiple reasons. We're getting a little bit of feedback again, Matt. So it's, use Chrome profiles. And so as an SOP in our white label agency, every single client campaign gets its own new unique Gmail account. And that unique Gmail account has its own Chrome profile associated with it. Okay. And every single team member on our team that's going to work on that client's campaign must, and I repeat, must, it's an SOP. It's cause for dismissal if you don't do it, must be working inside the Chrome profile for that user inside their browser. So we go to great extent within our own team to set up, Chrome profiles and set up authorship and keep those siloed and separate and compartmentalized, because we want to reduce footprint in terms of Google's monitoring. Just understand that Google is monitoring everything inside Chrome and inside Gmail. And so if you've got one browser session with one cache and one history, and you're logging into multiple Gmail accounts and working on multiple campaigns and logging into multiple websites and doing all this stuff all inside one cache, that is a recipe for, a lot of negative things to happen. So that's just one aspect of what Matt was referring to in terms of footprint and being very being very unique with you're intentional about what you're doing with each campaign. Okay, so let's see here. It's really about it for authorship. Matt, do you have anything you want to talk about in terms of the app on authorship? In terms of what's coming? Okay, I guess not. All right. Well, William, are you there, or are you still? Or did you
No,
leave?
I'm here. We have a couple of questions in here. So, Robbie, one of them said, I don't manage profiles. That's a 3. Also, Danny Wolf said, FY, if you log into WordPress, the login details are tied to a user profile.
Which is what we were talking about right here on this screen.
Yep.
So you want to use the same email address that you use for your Gravatar as the user profile on WordPress and tie those or link those together.
And then, so you should create this one. So should you create a profile for your SEO and use that?
For your CEO.
CEO.
Yeah, that's a good question, Robbie. So I think you're kind of cluing in on how we talked about you want authorship of content to be tied to real individuals at a company. Most certainly, the CEO would be probably the first place to start. Not every CEO wants to say how I'm gonna. It depends on the size of the company, for sure. Not every CEO of every big company is going to want to be tied to content. But in some cases, you may have a company and say we understand parts of it, but we don't want anyone here, literally being tied to the content. Can we just create a, maybe like an alias or a fake profile? So the answer could be, sure, we can do that. But like I said, then you're going to have to be very intentional to create a robust, verified profile and give Google as much as you can to validate, that is a real person as much as is possible. So that's a good question. If it's not the CEO, it should be somebody else. I mentioned this in another webinar, but this whole idea about tying individuals to companies or entities, right? It's really tying entities to entities, because individuals are entities in Google's eyes, and so are businesses. So Google is trying to tie entities to entities, individuals to companies. And that's why sites like Indeed and Glassdoor have become so prolific in terms of you showing up in the search results, is because Google's able to tie an individual or individuals to companies, and it wants to do that. That is a signal of authority based on how many employees a company has. And so the more verified profiles or employees or individuals that we can place at a company, the more we can judge their level of authority in the space just simply by their size. Because obviously a company that has 100 employees has more authority in a space than a company that doing the same exact service or providing the same exact product that has 2 employees or 10 employees. So tying individuals to employees or individuals to companies, is a process that Google is definitely working on at all times in its algorithm. What else do we have here, William? Anything else?
No, I mean, that's it. Then Robbie already said what she said. So that's about it. I mean, really.
So, I guess what we can do is, we can finish with just a quick update on our media rooms. And, so the very first iteration of this authorship concept came out in our first launch with Quantum. And that was the target site sourcing feature, right? And so it never made sense to me through the years when I use other press release services that they would take the press release, the article, the content, and they would publish it to their website or their newsroom first. Like, that just was ass backwards to me. From an SEO standpoint, it is ass backwards. What they're literally doing is stealing the authorship and stealing the majority of any benefit of the content by publishing it to their website first. Yeah, okay, you get an authoritative link from PR Newswire or Press Advantage or whoever. That's minuscule in comparison to the authorship benefit and the EAT profile benefit and all of the benefit that comes from being the original source of a piece of content, right? So due to this, this glaring, kind of, I guess, upside down execution in the traditional online PR world, we built Quantum with the target site sourcing feature. So how this is executed means that in Quantum, when you go in and you put your actual content into your Quantum account, if you create it from scratch or you have us write it, either way, what you're going to do is, number one, you're going to sign it to a company. All right, this is the first step. This is already live. The next iteration of this is it's going to be tied to an individual as well. So there's going to be individual authorship, not just entity authorship. Right now, entity authorship has already been live. It's a big reason, or at least one of the big reasons why the results are so much better using Quantum than other alternatives. But you choose your company here. In step 3, it's a very, very small kind of, you could really look over it, but it's just a checkbox. But it's this sourcing feature right here that allows you to say, tell Google, here's the original source of this content. And this should either be, on your main website, or as we're now executing it into a media room where press releases typically go. And so Google actually is looking for media rooms, newsrooms for press releases, and that can be marked up with press release or news article schema. And so we can begin to really give Google even more information as we source this. But sourcing this to a specific place that is an asset for you or your client that you want to rank is a really important piece of authorship, right? Because otherwise, we could, in a normal execution, Quantum Newswire, if it were a press release service, we would take this content, publish it to quantumnewswire.com/newsroom/whatever, and we would then gain all the benefit from that original piece of content being on our site. Instead, we allow our agencies to choose where that original content is going to go. So that was the very beginning of authorship in terms of execution in Quantum. The next level of that is individual authorship with an individual authorship channel that's coming soon. It looks like Matt had to drop off, so
I have Danny that has a question here. I already know the answer, but I'll let you answer it. Does Quantum allow us to embed iframes into the press release, such as YouTube, Google Maps, etc.?
The answer is no and yes. So no iframes, yes to Map and YouTube. I'll just show you in here. This is the body of the editor inside Quantum. You can come in here and you can insert images. And so if you wanted to insert a YouTube video, you can just drop the YouTube link right there, and that video shows up right here. No to iframes. There's specific security holes that obviously iframes have, and so we can't execute with iframes on the live news sites. But yes to videos, yes to images. And the Google Map, we have a direct integration with Google Maps through our Google API. So as you can see here, as soon as I pick this company here, it's going to find the associated GMB listing right here. And if not, you can quickly query the API right here like I'm doing. And there's the same business. I can pick it. But anyway, the Google Map API integration is direct. The map shows up in the media room, and it shows up on the live media sites, not as a map embed. This is a really important distinction on our platform. There are some other platforms that allow you to do a map embed, meaning you can take the embed code for a GMB map like this and stick that embed code somewhere in the article or the body or the press release, wherever, and you'll see a map then, with that embed. that is fine and it's great. Embeds are fine. However, what we're doing is a whole different level of execution in Quantum. We're doing a live API call and a live map display directly on the media sites. And so that this is, as you can see here, there's no embed code. It's not asking me for embed code because we're calling that through the API. And then when it's actually published out on the live media sites, you'll see the map directly called into the live media sites as well. So what that looks like in execution is a live map right here, okay? Again, there is no embed code that's making this map appear here. This is a live map API call. That is one of the strongest signals that you can develop around a GMB listing. A GMB map API call is a signal, and we know that GMB signals are the most influential signals in map pack rankings. And so we are focused on generating powerful or authoritative signals. And so this display is being achieved through that API call, not through an embed. So great question, Danny. Really good question. And wanted to make sure you had the distinction there because there is a difference between embed and a live API map.
Got one last question, and then we got to get off here. But it's what's the shelf life of Quantum press releases?
6 months. All other services, platforms that you might have used or could use are 30 days. A few of these that I used to have 60 days, but it's almost all to a T. On day 31, the shelf life is gone. So
Quantum is how long?
6 months.
Wow, that's longer than I thought. Actually, I thought it was 3 months originally, but that's even better.
Yeah, and that's what we try to under promise and over deliver. So we've always said 3 months because 3 months is more than long enough to get the full benefit out of the content, because we know that Google's algorithm is really assigning any and all benefit of anything you do from an SEO standpoint is really realized between days 20 and 45, 21 to 45. After about 45 days, any other benefit is really largely gone. And so as long as the content's live for over 45 days, we're doing pretty well. At 90 days, it's more than enough. But at 6 months, it's obviously really, really good.
Awesome. It's good having you guys on. We will be back again next week. Same time, same place. Going over any updates Quantum has. We also have, I've dropped it in the chat. There's a special that Lane has put together for everybody in our audience. And, he's giving you, what's the discount again there, Lane?
It's $1,000 off and $100 extra bonus credits after you sign up. Yeah. So if on the lifetime deal. So
on the lifetime deal, you're getting $1,000 off. That's insane, man.
And 100 bonus credits. Wow. And we also opened up a 10-pay option on the lifetime for people who couldn't afford the 1-pay, but wanted to do lifetime. So we opened up a 10-pay option for the Rank Fortress members as well. So if you do the lifetime and you take advantage of it, you'll use the coupon code that you see right here on the page, RF1000. That gets you the $1,000 off the normal ticket price. And then send us an email to sales@quantumnewswire.com. Just let us know that you purchased with your receipt, and then we'll add an extra $100 of credits into your account as well, just as an extra thank you for being a Rank Fortress member.
Awesome, guys. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, still drop them in at the bottom, and Lane and us will get back to you even after the show, even after replay. If you're not already a YouTube subscriber, make sure you hit subscribe down below, because that way whenever Quantum comes on, or some of our other guests on GMB or Google and just business matters in general, you get that update and you can see them as we go live. I appreciate it. Y'all have a great day.
See you, Will. Thanks, guys.